morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Victoria Bomberry, and I'm so happy to be with you this morning. Well, morning where I am, and I guess it's morning in California, and we have people who are watching from all over generally, and I am in my particular time zone. Well, this is the conversations that we're having on in Science of Mind, and this time of year we move from looking at the Science of Mind textbook to going to the archives to find things that interest us that we want to talk about. So I want to say good morning to Shay Bird, and I hope I'm saying your name right, Shay Bird, and it's great to see you here, and let us know where you're joining us from. Well, the reading that I chose today is from the archives, and it's called Keys to Wisdom. And it's a small booklet that was pulled together from the notebooks of Ernest Holmes. So these are notes for his lectures, for his classes, and those kinds of things. These are his personal notebooks where these ideas were gleaned from in his own writing, right? So I'm sure that they must have been in longhand, right? I'm thinking about that. These are his personal writings. I'm sure he did it in longhand and just had his notebook there ready to write in. And here we are with this wonderful compilation that was first published in 1965, and the fourth printing was in October of 1971. And so this is that, the volume one. And good morning, Linda from Colorado. Wonderful. And Colorado. Two people from Colorado. So welcome. So I chose this because I like the title, Keys to Wisdom. And when I thought about Ernest Holmes sitting in his home or office writing in his notebook and thinking about what he would be teaching maybe that day or in one of his classes, I thought, wow, what an awesome thing. And mainly they're just short sentences or a couple of sentences that speak to different categories that they've been arranged in. And they've been arranged with the open mind, that which is, the self, the personal life, joyful living as one believes. So those are the six headings that these meanings from his notebooks are put under. And it made me wonder, what would my notebooks look like? I write a few times a week. I don't do my writing every single day, but I do write a few times a week. And sometimes I don't look back over them for long stretches of time, and I think that that's a mistake. I probably should be looking back over these, as a friend of mine does. She compares last year writing on the same day with what she might be writing that day. And there's always these spiritual gems that she pulls out and things that she has been focusing on, sometimes for years on end, will show up over and over again. So I would like to see what those patterns are for myself, and maybe that's a project that you might be interested in doing too. So I think this is inspiring me to really take my notebooks a little bit more seriously. I know they find their way into my teaching and into my Sunday messages, but to just be more conscious of it. Well, I'm going to just start out, and I'm going to start not at the very beginning of this with the open mind, but I am going to pick and choose a few sentences from each category. But I will start with the first sentence. Fact will never contradict faith when we place fact and faith in a right relationship with one another. And what I am reminded of is that we have all of these things that are going on in the world today that can be incredibly upsetting, especially right now when we're seeing very up close the ravages of war in different areas of the world, and probably most notably right now in with Israel and Palestine, because that's where the focus has been, right? There's also many conflicts in Africa. And of course, the war in the Ukraine is still continuing. So those are the hot spots that Ukraine and Israel are the hot spots that we see. But there are other places where there's war and conflict. And sometimes it's difficult for us to actually find our faith when we're bombarded with terrible images and reporting from those hotspot areas. So we're looking at the facts, right? And how do we reconcile our faith with the fact of what is going on? And it kind of goes to that question of that people often ask in our classes. Why does evil exist, right? Why does that exist? Is there evil? Why does God allow this to go on? And it is, I think this speaks directly to this. Fact will never contradict faith when we place fact and faith in a right relationship with one another. So, what can that right relationship be? It's sort of like we have grown from seeing a deity as governing every aspect of our lives, which it does. However, we also have that free will operating and our own evolutionary pathway operating that is taking us closer and closer to self-realization, right? We're already realized, but to bring that into consciousness and as a lived reality is what our work on this planet is about. So when we're confronted with facts, those facts of the material fact of war, and we see the devastation of it, rather than blaming God, right? We put our faith, have the faith of God. God has faith in us as those spiritual beings that are living this life. God has absolute faith in our ability to move through these things and have deep learnings that are sustainable, not just little things that might alter the course of one day's events, but lasting transformation. That is what evolution can mean. And of course, evolution is also one of those things that can go down, not only take some twists and turns, but we have that ability to operate as that divinity within any situation. So we're not passive victims of these events. We are active participants in up-leveling with our faith what we outpicture as fact in this world. So that's our work here, bringing faith and fact into right relationship with one another. And, it makes sense. Our teachings tell us that, what our thought is, brings about the effect in the world, right? So the form takes place because of our thought. So that's what our work is. So I think this is a powerful, powerful idea that Ernest Holmes has in his notebook. Fact will never contradict faith when we place fact and faith in right relationship with one another. We could also say, oh, that's just a fact. War is just human nature. Okay, would that be right relationship? No. I'll just say, no, that's not right relationship because we're accepting a limitation, right? That's just human nature. Well, human nature is so much more than that. Human nature is divine nature. So if we make statements about those negative things that are a part of life right now, then we are placing a limitation on ourselves. That's not the divinity's doing. That is a limitation that we've placed on ourselves. So there's a lot of wisdom in this very brief statement that we could continue to go with, right? That we could continue to delve into. And that's what contemplation is, right? We sit down, we may read one line, and I'm reminded that Ernest Holmes used to sit outside and he would contemplate for hours, maybe one or two lines of something that he read. And he would just sit there and contemplate it and allow that deep exploration to occur. So we are invited to do that as well. I think that all of us could sit with this one line and find more and deeper wisdom in it. And the practice of it is placing fact and faith in right relationship to each other. So sometimes, right, when we're talking about these things, there's not a recipe for it, right? It doesn't say, okay, let's create this right relationship. You do A, B, C, and D, right? It's sort of up to us to discover how to do that. And of course, we have these tools that we use in religious science to put those things in right relationship one another. One thing, that I think is that I've already mentioned is contemplation. We can contemplate this. How are we, as this individual expression of God, going to put faith and fact into right relationship with one another? So we could spend time contemplating this. What is another tool that we might use? We might use prayer, of course. We might do a spiritual mind treatment when we see a fact that is disturbing to us. And then we do spiritual mind treatment to bring faith and fact into right relationship with one another. And it's all about our consciousness, right? We might also use meditation, or we might, as many of us do, use journaling. There's a number of ways that we can use the tools that are with us, that we have, to come into right relationship with our faith and fact. It may even be entering into conversation with others around things that are troubling us. Sometimes we think that we're alone in this when we're dealing with something that's disturbing, a disturbing fact. We think we're alone with it. And yet, there's all kinds of people who are contemplating or thinking about the same fact. They're troubled by that fact. It may be a diagnosis that they've received. And by talking to some other people, we can come into right relationship with fact and faith. So there's all these tools that are available to us to use in creating that right relationship. And one of the things that I love about this too, another thought that he has, another idea in the open mind section of this, is humanity has never been defeated. It rises triumphant over the ashes of every dead hope and aspires anew to the highest heaven. Okay, we may struggle with fact, right? And yet when we put faith and fact in right relationship with one another, we can't be defeated, right? We're not defeated. We may have had some desire, and yet that desire may go unfulfilled in the moment because of the facts of the situation. And yet there's something new that is born out of this. Something that may be intangible, or it may be something that is tangible, that replaces that old idea. But it does require us to do something, right? It doesn't require us just to lay back and give up. It requires us to elevate ourselves with the help of others. We're not in this alone. With the help of others and with the help of God. And here is another thought, another idea. We constantly discard old ideas and take on new and better ones. The mind gives us no rest. The instinct urges us on. The intuition draws us upward. So he's actually giving us this idea of this upward spiral. This is the upward spiral in action, right? It's not just that beautiful image of this upward spiral. It's actually that dynamism of it. Old ideas that are discarded, that, no longer serve us, that may have been off in some sort of way, not clear. And yet we take on new and better ones through experience. One thing that is, just at the heart of our teaching is experience. We're here to experience, right? We have all these experiences that we can draw from. Life is experiential. It's not, it can't be lived by proxy, right? We have to live it. Each individual has to live life in order to be on that upward spiral, right? In order to be able to learn and grow from things that we may have been told in the past. And through experience, we realize, oh my goodness, that is absolutely not true. And I'm going to doesn't work for me. I found over and over again that idea really, it doesn't hold water. And I'm going to go back again to, the idea that, oh, that's just human nature, right? And let's look at war, for example. Oh, that's just human nature. Well, that would mean that there's absolutely no way that we are able to overcome it because that's just who we are, right? And yet, there is a lot less violence in the world than there ever has been. It's hard to imagine that when we see horrendous activities taking place. But the truth is that there is less violence in the world, and that we are learning that war is not human nature. It is um, a reaction that comes from, well, it's a reaction like that has no thought behind it. It just occurs, right? It doesn't have substance behind it. So the substance would be the divine, when we find that divine in us. And that divine in us takes us beyond the thinking that, oh, that's just human nature, because we're so much more than we've ever thought we were. So much more. Oh, yes, there's my kitty cat meowing in the background. I think she's agreeing with me that cat nature and human nature are there's things that we might have as behaviors, but we can always change those behaviors, right? So this is hopeful, isn't it? We are constantly discarding those old ideas and take on new and better ones. And that just seems like, oh wow, of course that's true. But the import of it is incredibly deep. If we can discard old ideas that are destructive to us, then create new ones that work, that are indicative of our evolution, then we are transforming our lives. And then this is on page 5. Instead of looking on our problems as things difficult to solve, we should look upon every problem as but an added possibility, an added opportunity for self expression. Okay. So we have all kinds of things that we identify as problems in our lives, right? And instead of, this is relanguaging that from problem to possibility. Okay. Oh, let's take, for example, let's take like the credit unions. Since we all deal with money, and sometimes we all have different flows of abundance coming in, or prosperity coming. Right? We have different flows of prosperity showing up in our life. Well, there was a time when people were. This was during the Depression. People were losing their homes right and left, their farms, their senses of life, their livelihood. And people got together and thought, well, how can we mutually support one another? And they created credit unions so that they could come together, unify, and create these funds that would be loaned out to people to buy homes, to subsidize, to help start their businesses, or, give some cash to their businesses. But this was all a group of people coming together to help one another. And that was a different model than the one that had been foreclosing on everyone. This was a mutual help kind of situation. So that is how those credit unions were born. It was not a, it definitely was a problem. However, looking at it as a possibility for creating a new form allowed folks to do that, right? Oh, there's another possibility out there. Let's try this. And with that reciprocity and mutuality, out of that were born the credit unions. And that gave many people a new opportunity for self expression, whether it was in being able to run a small business or to own a home, to house themselves. So this was an incredible, incredible thing that went from problem to opportunity to the outpicturing of something that was tangible. And here's one that I thought was good, because oftentimes we kind of in religious science we've kind of gotten a little bit away from the Bible, teaching the Bible in a lot of our work, in favor of other books and other teachings from other disciplines. But I happen to love the Bible um, as a repository, of human behavior and human history over time. So he writes, the Bible from beginning to end, viewed as a whole teaching, repeats in one way or another the law of cause and effect. Right? I agree with that 100%, because, you read the stories in the Bible, nothing, well, of course, there's things that are left out, but, you read the good, the bad, and the ugly in there, right? And it is all about, well, this occurred. This was the cause. This was the effect, right? Human, right? This is what we did as human beings. This was the effect. And then there's some sort of revelation that course corrects that which was happening. So there is a change. This, maybe it feels like a slow incremental change, and yet there is a change. There's a transformation taking place. And I want to keep with this word transformation, because change is just it's not going to happen. It's just something that you change and it can go back. When you transform, it doesn't go back, right? So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at that possibility of not just these little changes, but this as an ongoing process of transformation. And it says, it starts with the premise that the universe is a spiritual system, and that humanity is included in that spiritual system. So, of course, here is that written very clearly. There's not a separation between heaven and earth, right? Humanity is included in the spiritual system. We're not out there floating around like astronauts thrust, floating in space alone and isolated, right? No, we are a part of that spiritual system. And the infinite creates by the power of its word, or the contemplation of its consciousness. And as a complement to this, like a completion of this, humanity reproduces this creativity in their individual lives. We are holding our divinity behind a mask, but back of the mask is a unique individualization of God. If we can unmask the mind, we shall reveal the real person. So there's a lot there, isn't there? And I think that, when we read, any of the sacred texts, we are getting a lesson in cause and effect. Even if we're reading history, right? If we're reading a book on history, we are getting a lesson in cause and effect. And, like I said, I really like the Bible because things are not left out. It's not the rosy, there is the there is the rosy picture too, but it's not just basic, a basic rosy picture of a people. It shows the deep fissures and the blemishes that occur as a result of faulty thinking or misunderstanding, right? Really misunderstanding, because we are developing our consciousness. And of course, 5,000 years ago, consciousness was different. It really was. And there was a time when we didn't recognize ourselves as individuals with our own subjectivities, our own personhood. And that is a developmental thing for us as a species. So here we are, we're developing, right? We're developing in consciousness. And I love this line about we're hiding our divinity behind a mask. And, I don't know what you see when you look in the mirror, right? But sometimes, I look in the mirror and I thought, oh, Lordy, I really look a mess this morning, or I really look a mess right now, and I can't see beyond, just what's here, right? What's looking back at me in the mirror. And yet, if I really look, I see something that is deeper than that. I see that individuality, not just the mask, not just this visage of a 74-year-old woman, but there is that something intrinsic to me that is beautiful, that is divine, that has that incredible joy and vitality, right? It's there. So oftentimes we only look at the mask, but what do we do when we remove that and see that shield that's hiding who we are? Just take it off and let that light shine, right? Well, I want to move to that which is. And I'm going to start on page 7. The divine mediator is the revelation of the living presence of the divine principle, the universal mind, immediate in our own soul. Our search after the place where reality, with a capital R, may be found is ended when we come at long last to the simple revelation of truth, that all the power there is and all the presence there is must be the living spirit. God is an immediate presence which can be found only and directly and immediately in our own soul. So that's what we see when we remove the mask, right? We see that living spirit. We see that immediate presence. We see our own soul, which is in microcosm, that grand oversoul that Emerson talked about, right? That which we are a part of and that is a part of us. And I love that. I love that Yeah, we're not just a part of it. It's not just a part of it, but we are a part of it, this wholeness, right? It can't exist without this individualization. That wholeness cannot exist. Well, that kind of brightens me up in the morning, right? And then the next concept that's introduced immediately after this is when we use our creative imagination with strong faith, it will create for us out of the one substance whatever we have formed in thought. In this way, humanity becomes co creator with God. There will never be an end to God, nor to any of the attributes which are co eternal and coexistent with God. If we are wise, we shall cultivate a faith in these realities. So we're going back to faith, right? So putting fact and faith into right relationship, right? We use our creative imagination. We see those problems as opportunities, right? And we apply our creative imagination to those opportunities with the faith of God. And it will create out of the one substance. There's only one substance that makes up all of this, all of creation. It's a whole, right? There might be all those individualizations of the whole, and yet it's all contained in creation. It's all there. Everything that's needed is there. It's all there. We don't have to worry. There's not any baking powder in the cupboard. No, it's there. Right? We can make that beautiful muffin this morning because it's already there, right? Whatever our big muffin is going to be, right? It's there. It's there for us. It's ready to be put to use. And I am also interested in this because I don't, I have to do a deeper study in this, but I don't think we see co-creator used very often in the Science of Mind, if ever, in the Science of Mind textbook. And yet here in the notebooks, we see co-creator appearing. Earlier writings in religious science didn't necessarily the overall arc of it was everything is to be discovered, everything has been created, everything, it's just to be discovered, right? And yet here we are looking at this in a slightly different light. Co-creator. And we use that often in Science of Mind. It's not that it's not there. It's very popular right now to use that term co-create. So, but I'm looking at, where does it enter in to the philosophy, and how does that idea, become a part of what we believe, right? And I'm saying this because these are the writings of Ernest Holmes. This is a project that he began. He was doing these explorations, and yet it's not ended, right? It's an upward spiral, and we'll use that over and over again, that image of the upward spiral. We take these ideas. Is there going to be something new that replaces it because we have a better understanding? Well, that is our work as we do our study. We may have a revelation, and we believe that anyone can be a revealer of truth. If we are open and receptive, we may discover something that we add to our philosophy. So it's not over, right? We are co-creating with God. We are a part of this process, right? Again, there's the macrocosm and the microcosm. Everything that God is, I am. It's all there. Wow. That's the immensity of it is kind of mind blowing, right? And we know, there's the reality, the ultimate reality is that there's never an end to God, nor to any of the attributes which are co eternal and coexistent with God. Joy is never going to run out. Joy is just there. Abundance is just there, right? It's eternal. It's eternal. Okay, I think we have time for just one more. And I love this one too. And this is on the self. How can we receive that which the mind refuses to entertain? Should we not then consciously develop the ability to receive more? We make life little and mean and limit our own possibilities when we refuse to accept the whole gift of God. We should open our consciousness for a receptivity of the divine. There will never be any point of saturation because God is infinite. We cannot contract the infinite, but we can expand the infinite. And this is where, I think, well, this really resonates with the idea of this expanding universe, right? It's infinite already, but it's also expanding, right? And it is not dependent on how much space there is. It's expanding. So I'm not quite sure if I can wrap my head around that, but that is the ultimate reality mathematically shown, right? So there's this expansion that's taking place. Now, how can we receive something if we can't entertain it in our mind, right? So let's entertain that. The expanding of the infinite. The infinite is always expanding. I know I kind of, at one point, had a jolt when I thought, oh, there's a limit to the infinite. Somehow I thought, how can, the infinite is infinite. And, mathematically, of course, if you add one to the infinite, it's still infinite, right? But somehow in my head, I was like, how does that, I don't know how that computes. And this is the same sort of thing. That's what happens to us. We think, oh, okay, well, I can't even think about that. I can't think that human nature can change. I can't, it's always thousands and thousands of years. I hear this all the time. Thousands and thousands of years, people have been at war. People have done this. People have done that to one another. And it's just going on and on. I don't see how it can change, right? Well, if we can't entertain the thought of something different, there's no way that we can achieve it. Just like the people who created credit unions, if they couldn't think of themselves as powerful in coming together to pool their money, there would be no credit unions and there wouldn't have been that huge movement that allowed people to live a good life. And this is the same sort of thing. It applies wherever you decide to use it. Can we envision that world, right? And if we can envision it and entertain it, right? And think about that word, entertain. Okay, that's not drudgery, right? That's entertaining. That's enlivening it. That is embodying it, right? That's it. That's it. So we are, let's do that. Let's cultivate our ability to receive more. We don't want to limit our possibilities. And yet we do it every day when we say, when we can't see something as real for us. And, I love this. There's never any point of saturation, right? Because God is infinite. So, no matter how much good you have, it doesn't reach a saturation point. There's always more good. And, we're not just talking about material good, we're talking about all the good that there is: love, light, joy, abundance. It's infinite, it's always there for us. And all we have to do is open ourselves and be ready to receive. Well, these are all ideas, each one of these snippets from his notebooks are something that we can take and spend a whole day contemplating. And I am so glad that you were here today. And I just want to remind you that we're here every Saturday morning. And we love the writings of Ernest Holmes, so we just go into it and spend time with it. And always, if you are so inclined, support this network. It allows us to continue to come and have these discussions, and also, you know, um, and also join in the discussion if you have comments or questions, things that you are curious about. Get more curious, yeah, and just enjoy this. So, love to all, and I'll see you next time.